Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I'm here with Ben Nguyen, a very bright young man that I've heard his name a lot. I met him over in the famous Nancy Nix's backyard. He was doing a meet and greet there, and I was very impressed meeting him. And the first thing I thought was, wow, why don't more people know about him? And if they had a chance to get to know him a little bit, they'd be very impressed. So I thought it'd be good to sit down and have a chat so more people can get to know him the way I have. So good to see you, Ben.
You as well.
I was really, a couple things from your speech in Nancy's backyard. I did not know that this upcoming school levy, now you're running for school board for Lakota schools. You're very young, you just graduated.
Yeah.
That is not, I don't think, a hindrance. I think it's an asset because you just came out of the school.
That's right.
So you know what's going on, you know kind of what everybody's up to. If you're smart, which you clearly are, you want to invest in the future, which you clearly do, and you're going to have a long career doing these kinds of things. This is a great way to get involved.
Absolutely.
I don't see any negatives. When I was going over to meet you at her house, of course, I have the same questions that everybody who would vote for you would be. It's like, well, he's 18 years old. How can he run? How can he be on the school board? And I think after considering things a little bit after your speech, I think you're better than anybody because you're most prepared and most positioned to understand the core problem. And I think based on your speech, and I'll give you plenty of time to talk,
Absolutely.
is why we don't need the school levy and what kind of indoctrination is indoctrination, because you always hear critical race theory and all this other stuff. And there's all the transgender discussions about bathrooms. You were there with all the other students, and so you know what the culture's like, and you're prepared to talk about it and deal with it in a way. The wind's not going to let us put your sign up.
Yeah, there you go.
But we'll find a way to make it work anyway. But I think it's a good platform. I think it's the election comes down, coming up in November 2025. I think it comes down to engagement and whether Republicans come out and vote like they would to defeat the levy, if they were going to support Trump on the ticket,
right.
you know, the most Trump voters, because Democrats are going to have their people coming out, you know, they're engaged, they want to maintain control of the school board, but conservatives are looking for voices that can articulate their position, and they don't typically on off-year elections show up.
Right.
So we got to convince them of that.
That's right.
So anyway, you said something during your speech that I thought was really interesting, and I had no idea because I've done these school levy things for over 25, 30 years. This is the most expensive school levy in history, Ohio?
That's right.
The biggest one?
History. The biggest one. So 2 years ago, Columbus City Schools had a levy, or 3 years ago, 2022, they had a levy that was $681 million. And they pulled it before it ever even reached the ballot because of the backlash they received. And that's a district of 33,000 kids. Lakota's only got 18,000. That's 18,000, 17,000.
Hasn't really changed much
No.
over
No.
15 years.
No. And actually, even in the next 10 years, their projection is just 50 students per grade level, which is minimal at best for a school district, especially to justify a massive facilities plan like the one they've got going, just for 50 kids in each grade level. And by the way, we don't even know if these building plans are going to increase square footage like they say they will, because they want to increase classes, right? They want to put more classrooms in the buildings so that they can limit the size of classrooms in each of these, you know. And what they say to justify the levy is that the classes are too big, teachers are handling too many students, so we've got to have more classrooms to space them out. But the square footage is relatively the same across all the facilities plans. So that's part of the reason why it's wrong, but also, you know, just going back to the size of the levies, I think Western Southern City had a levy that was, this levy is 4 times bigger than that one, and that one was the largest one passed. This one would be the largest one ever passed, and already it's the largest one proposed. So it takes gold in a lot of different ways for just being extremely expensive.
So levies, you're not just running on a platform of no money, defund schools, and that's not what we're talking about. I think Lakota has a $250 million a year budget.
Yes.
So this is an affluent district, northern suburb of Cincinnati, for those who aren't familiar with Lakota schools. So it's not like there's not enough money. There's a lot. But when they talk about smaller classroom sizes, that means more employees. It means more teachers. So, and more teachers mean more administrative costs because that's the bulk of the budget.
Right.
And when you're already at $250,000, do you really want to increase it by 4% or 5% if you're making classrooms smaller and making more schools that are bigger that have to have more employees in them? Your administrative costs are going to go up. So we're just talking about a bond levy here. It's the most expensive in the state of Ohio's history.
Yes.
There's going to be an operations levy after this one.
Well, and there already is an operations levy coupled with it. So the bond issuance aspect is $506 million, and the permanent improvement part is $185 million. So together, it's $691 million together. But they're not putting on two different issues. This is one issue that you have to vote for. So you can't say yes to a permanent improvement or no to the bond issuance. You have to say yes to both of them, which together is $691 million.
So I have to tell you something, and I was very impressed with you, not just to say it because you're here, but I left our meeting thinking of the past. You're a young man, you're a young man, and I think I'm an old man. I don't think of myself that way, but you make me feel that way. And I remember over the years all the times that I've been invited, like with Nancy. She'll say, "Hey, come over and see this so-and-so." And she's done that on a few occasions. And one occasion was J.D. Vance, and he spoke exactly where you stood at the corner of her pool.
That's right.
And talked to the audience. She said, "There's this bright young man, come on out and see him." And I'm like, it's this guy. I'm coming out to see J.D. Vance. He's from Middletown. I'm always kind of skeptical. And, I've seen, she did that with J.D., and she certainly did that with Vivek. And I met Vivek, and I'm like, how's this guy so rich, so early in his life? He's only like 30-some years old, and he's almost a billionaire.
That's right.
But he's so smart. He spoke so well. So she has a long track record of picking out people who are really sharp. And then she says that about you, and I come out and I'm like, I'm going to go to these things, and one of these days she's going to disappoint me. But you go out and you start rounding off numbers like people who are, economics majors, and they don't speak that well. Bankers that know their business, and you're rounding off numbers better than they do.
Well, I appreciate it.
And so you have a very good grasp of budgetary understanding now, and some of those people on the Lakota that work for Lakota, the treasurer, they've tried to bring us some nice people and good people. And I don't know, the superintendent is. I hope she's a good person. I've met her a few times. You want these people to work well. They're employees. We pay for them. You hope for the best, but I just can't imagine them having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be at a big disadvantage.
Really?
Yeah, I think you have a grasp now, probably better than a lot of them do, and I'm encouraged because I think that's the kind of discussions we need to have.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about a lot of people are supporting you in the background. We talked a little bit about the endorsement of Linda O'Connor. She used to be on the school board.
That's right.
She used to be the president. I've known Linda for a long time. I've spent many hours with Linda talking about school board related items. A lot of controversy over, we had worked out a conservative school board. Not everybody played well together. I know that at Nancy's fundraiser, Isaac was there to show support. Isaac and Darby, there was a lot of stuff going on and role Linda had in that. The bottom line is it's leadership, and when you start getting like the Republican Party endorsements and supporting candidates for a school board, which we clearly want to do, because the Democrats have their, they might put an R next to their name, but they're clearly D's.
Right.
You've been with the Young Republicans, right?
That's right. I had a role in founding or refounding the Young Republicans here in Butler County with Jonah Hendershot, and he serves as chairman and I serve as vice chairman.
So it's not that you're getting into this for the first time.
Right.
You're kind of going along the path of Charlie Kirk's young, and you're going the path of the young Charlie Kirk's, where you're just out there hitting it already. And
That's
I think as you get into the decades, you're going to have quite a long track record. So you're not new to this.
Right.
So obviously, when you speak, you can tell. But then you start getting in this game of politics, because you have to bring people together.
Right.
You have to be able to talk to people who may not, you might be on this side of the 50%
Right.
of the Republican side, and then this side of the 50% of the Democrat
Yeah.
side. Well, 50% to 100%, there could be a lot of variations in that
Absolutely.
belief system. So to find a way to sit down with people and talk to them at varying degrees of Republican politics or conservative politics, or just people who are trying to figure out where they're at in life, they just want a good school board member.
Right.
Building the bridges is tough. So getting an endorsement from Linda, even if people have feelings about it,
That's right.
is important, because it at least says, hey, there's people who supported her
Right.
and would still support her that want to know her opinion, and it's important that she says, hey, I would vote for him.
Right.
And then it's also good that Isaac was there to support you, and that there's people all up and down in between. I've heard from a lot of people who really let me know about you that were big supporters of Darby. And so that's quite a spectrum.
Right.
And I listened to you talk to all the people that were there, and you were very, I wouldn't, it's not insincere to say that you were slick. You were, I think, politically intelligent in being accommodating of everybody's point of entry in politics.
Absolutely.
Which is that's a very good skill. And you have it at a very early age. And I'm saying that a lot because I know that it's shocking to a lot of people to hear that you just graduated and now you want to run for school board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to say, just with regards to the endorsements, my platform remains the same, right? We're interested in putting career tech into the K through 12 curriculum. We're interested in, education over indoctrination. We want to return parents' voices into the direction and upbringing of how their kids' education is going. And we want to restore fiscal sanity to this district. There have been no compromises on that. I've been very clear with everybody. Hey, I'll take your support, but that's not going to edit, my platform. This platform is solid. It's carved in stone. This is what we're fighting for. And so any endorsements from Representative Gross, Senator Lang, or, Linda O'Connor, Isaac Adi, all of those endorsements and support have been based off of this platform that we're going to make Lakota, we're going to restore it to the district we know it can be, the great district we know it can be. And that's what we want to bring into the schools. So when someone comes up and say, hey, I'd like to throw my support behind you, would you accept that? I say, hey, yes, I will accept that. But this endorsement will be based off of this platform. You like it, you approve of it, you think it should be in the schools, okay. You want to support, because we're not supporting, we're supporting a guy, but ultimately I like to think we're supporting an idea.
Yeah.
And the idea is keeping conservative leadership on the school board, leadership that will fight for the students, fight against indoctrination, fight against radical ideologies, and make sure the focus is right back onto the common skills, right? Math, common core skills, math, reading, science, history. That's what we want to put the focus back on.
And that's a great platform. And so you just came out of the schools, and I've done these videos for a long time, and you were going through the school system as I'm doing these videos, talking about indoctrination and CER and critical race theory and all these kinds of things. So there's the buzzwords in politics of what those things are. What's it like in the hallways of Lakota?
Well, I can tell you this, just again, people are going to say, oh, well, you don't want teachers, you want to muzzle them, you don't want to let them express themselves. And, I think teaching styles are important, right? Because different kids appeal, different teaching styles appeal to different kids. And I had great teachers. All around, I had great teachers. I was blessed with great teachers. But what I can tell you is that there's very subtle things that happen. Teachers having conversations that they shouldn't, teachers being loud with the conversations that they shouldn't be being loud with, or just teachers, allowing a conversation to happen that probably shouldn't happen, or a conversation that they should just back off and they say, hey, I don't know, right? Certainly with education, right, a big thing about it has been the Department of Education, right? President Trump wants to put it back to the states, which I think is a great idea. But you'll have teachers that are going to fearmonger on that. They're going to say, oh, well, Republicans hate kids with special needs. They don't think that these kids with special needs deserve the tools that they can to succeed in the public education system. And President Trump wants to take away their funding because he has this view on them or that. And they want to open it up, make it broad, not just President Trump, but all Republicans have this view of kids with IEPs, the 504s. And they want to fearmonger and say that Republicans are taking this, that, and the other away from you. Similar to fearmongering with the Social Security issue, saying that they're going to cut Social Security. So they're saying to all these students, hey, President Trump, Republicans, they hate you, they don't want public education to succeed, and that's wrong. I'm going for a position in public education because I believe in it, but I believe that it needs to be done right. It needs to be done in a direction that's going to put our kids better in a position that they can succeed. So what's going on in the halls? I had a very fortunate experience. I did not experience much of the CRT, inappropriate books, anything like that. But I know it's there. And I know that there are teachers that come in with these agendas.
It's kind of like a speakeasy.
Right.
If you know that
right.
knock on the door 3 times and
That's right.
do a door handle jingle,
That's right.
they let you in.
That's right. And I had teachers that were Republicans, and I knew how to talk to them. I knew how to, how to share their opinions and how to share my opinion with them and how to have a conversation. But in a similar way, the left knows how to have conversations with these teachers too. And actually, I think the best kind of teacher is a teacher where I don't know your opinion, because that's not what you're being paid for.
That's right.
Those are the best kind of teachers, and I just don't think we see enough of them. You have so many people that are ready to jump on your opinions or jump to support their opinions, and I think abuse that kind of power dynamic between teacher and student, and we just can't have that in the schools. Even if it's not so much on the gender and sexuality, which I'm sure conversations happen all the time, because we see students come in with these mental disorders, quite frankly, and nobody's speaking against it. Nobody's saying, hey, you should probably have a conversation with your parents about this, or maybe we should bring in your parents to the discussion. Nobody's having those conversations. They talk about expanding guidance counselors with regards to mental health, because we have a mental health crisis. But on the same end, you have guidance counselors that, all across this district and other districts, they might be hiding information from the parents. And so that's been a big part of what I want. Even if you think, hey, my teacher was pretty good, we never had these conversations, or my kid's teacher is pretty good, they never have those conversations, they say that this teacher is good. Even if you don't believe that's happening, what's wrong with transparency then? Bring in the parents. If you don't believe anything's happening, then bring in the parents, let them survey the curriculum, and bring them into the discussions that are being had.
Yeah, talking about transparency, and a lot of people, that's the anger towards Linda comes to the cutting off the public comments. I know that the public comments, my wife still talks about it. We went to a school board meeting in support of Darby. It was one of those really hostile ones. And you know how the crowd sort of gets churned up.
Yeah.
And there's an effort to churn it up. And so the police can then say, we recommend that you don't have these because they're dangerous, right? Because that's the overall goal, was to shut down the public discourse by bringing in radical elements. And there's a lot of anger in how Linda handled it, and you can go back and talk about water under the bridge a lot. The fact is, it still hasn't come back. So it was under a condition, it was very volatile at the time, and they canned it because they were afraid people were going to have a fight. And again, that's where my wife was. She felt very threatened by some people because we were there, and it was an aggressive environment, and it could have turned into something bad in the parking lot.
Absolutely.
And the police were like, we got to get control of these meetings. So she, at the time, I think Linda was the president at the time, she pulled the plug on the meetings to keep things peaceful, and then it never got turned back on. So to this day, and you brought that up the other day, that public discourse, that transparency for safety has not been managed to where people can express their opinion. So now they kind of do like this little this interface before these meetings to kind of get people's notes and then reflect them in the public record in some way, but it's not the same.
No, and it's not even recorded, so how do you know what's being reflected accurately into the public record? And look, I think, the reasoning behind public comment being suspended, okay, you've got kids in the room, you've got people that are on the verge of violence, you've got swearing, all sorts of things that reflects badly on the district. I can understand that. So then have separate dialogues, and then maybe record those dialogues. Ultimately, if we want to stand for transparency, I think you should be recording them. You have people come in on C-SPAN. C-SPAN has videos where people aren't saying the most appropriate things. Senator Kennedy, from Louisiana, he's talking about the books that are, in schools and that are inappropriate, and he's reading from them. And that transcript gets put on C-SPAN, and even if it's not his words, they're from a book, they're not appropriate. But either way, just having those pathways for people to say, hey, what's going on? What are people saying? I think it's important instead of shutting them out of the discussion completely. And just on another note, again, you brought the largest levy in Ohio's history onto the ballot. You put it on the ballot. Even if you think there's going to be swearing or maybe inappropriate discussions in terms of just the, not sexuality or anything like that, but just, kind of tough language. I still think you should have the dialogue. You need to be able to face the music when you put that on the ballot.
Well, and the reason we want school board people to be from the community, because you said another important thing in that speech, which I thought was really intelligent, is we just don't have representation. The community isn't being represented.
Right.
And when we've done this effort in the past, we've put people on the school board, and the current school board runs them off. They find some technicality to bust them, get some legal gymnastics, and it becomes no longer about representation.
Right.
Because that's why you have public discourse.
Yes.
But that's also why we have an election, to have people from our community there to kind of make sure things are being done right. So just because you might be against this levy, which is the largest in history, that doesn't make you anti-school.
Right.
Because I thought another thing that you said that was very intelligent was that you credit the school with a lot of who you are, which I think is pretty amazing. I would argue that it's because I met your parents. It's because you have good parents.
Yeah,
they put a lot of love
blessed.
into you. You have a good
I'm
family,
blessed.
obviously, and you guys are close, and it has, I think, the most important element to creating good individuals. However, you gave credit to I have had a good school experience. I went to Lakota. I like Lakota. I like that my siblings are going to Lakota or have gone, and I want to preserve it for them. I want it to be a good thing for the community.
That's right.
So just because I'm saying no to this ridiculous levy where all these people have decided to spend the money incorrectly, I want to be a part of making sure they spend it correctly.
Right.
Take your $250 million budget and spend it better.
That's right.
And you want to be a part of that.
That's right.
Because you attribute that to your success.
Absolutely. And I'm proud to be a Firebird. I've lived in Lakota for about almost 10 years now. I'm a proud product of Lakota West High School. Go Firebirds. So this isn't this isn't like somebody propping me up vendetta, and I'm like, oh, we got to tear down the schools or something like that, and we can't do this, or we got to fail this levy just because we can. No, there are legitimate reasons to why this levy shouldn't pass. I mean, you're talking about $691 million. If this was totally necessary, you would have people coming in saying, hey, the schools are not structurally sound. But I talked with Dr. Whiteley. I talked with Treasurer Zink. The schools are fine.
The old schools they want to tear down.
The old schools they want to tear down. You might have some issues with West Freshman, but I'll get to that maybe separately later here. Well, actually, I'll cover it now. So we were sitting on almost $118 million in reserves at the end of Linda O'Connor's term. If West Freshman, which is the big issue, right? If West Freshman was seriously an issue, they could have used reserves to rebuild that school, and they have room to put freshmen into the main campus at West. So they could have torn down West Freshman, maybe build something better, maybe turn it into something else, and they were sitting on money that they could have done that with, but they didn't. They didn't, and I don't know where that $118 million is now, but they came back and they asked for $691 million. And on top of that, they're taking this OFCC's deal, right, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, and they're saying that, oh, well, we're going to get 32% back in 2029 because of this deal we're taking with the OFCC. I think it's insulting because the 32% back is already money that the state's taxed us from, right? They're saying, oh, well, we're going to get $200 million back from the state. Well, the state already taxed you that $200 million, so they're just going to pay you back with your own money to keep you quiet. And I think it's insulting to say that as a reward for the voters. On top of that, when you take a deal with the OFCC, you don't get to choose the terms necessarily. You have to fight for certain things here and there, and they fought to renovate Cherokee Elementary or some of these elementaries. They fought to renovate instead of demolish, but ultimately the OFCC had the final say on this. If we had done our own plan and we had limited to the schools that absolutely needed it, this plan would have been far cheaper, and we wouldn't be going to the voters with $691 million debt obligation that we're asking them to take on. We wouldn't be doing it. So, I like these people. I like Treasurer Zink. I like Dr. Whiteley. They're good people, and they are taxpayers in the district. I don't think anybody wants to see their property taxes go up. But also, not everybody is receiving a salary from the school district. So in that regard, I think they're biased. I've had conversations with them, and I've had a lot of truth revealed. This plan only pertains to the raw construction. This doesn't pertain to any curriculum, any learning materials, any salaries of teachers or staff expansions. That's not what this levy deals with. So they're going to have to come back with, like you said, another operating levy to raise salaries, to buy this material, to teach the kids. But this building, this plan is just raw construction, and in no way actually builds the academic achievement of the students in Lakota. It doesn't build it now in 2029. This is a plan that's going to take 37 years. So we're not even going to see the results of this until much further in the future. We're not going to see any operational savings until much further in the future. That's why I just can't agree with this plan.
So the total, you and Tom Minier talked about the total debt obligation that the community, the Lakota School District, is going to have in Butler County. What was that number?
So $691 million is just the levy.
Yeah.
There could be interest on that because the school is operating out of, oh, well, we assume that this is all going to go right and that this is going to happen at this exact time, and if it doesn't, well, we'll cross that bridge when we have to. They're operating out of a lot of nice assumptions, but if those assumptions are wrong, as we know with
most of the time they are wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time it's full of hopes and lots of lollipops and rainbows when you think these things up. But then you put real money and real application of what you end up with reality.
That's right.
And it's much different. And so the total debt obligation goes into the billions.
That's right. It could go up to $1.2 billion, which I haven't done the calculation.
And you say could, and likely could be more than that because of because interest rates are a moving target, and that's based on today's assumptions.
That's right. And by the way, permanent improvement, permanent. It stays there. So the 185 is just what they're asking now, but that's going to be for every single year. And that's why I say that this levy is 37 years and onward, because it isn't just ending at the 37 years that you're paying this off. And it isn't just 3 generations of Lakota grads that are going to be paying this off. This is, because of the permanent improvement aspect, this is going to be much longer than that.
And there's a drain, because one thing you also talked about, you said a lot in that speech. You wanted to stay in the community as you grow up and as you start building a family of your own. I think you're going to go to Miami University, and so you want to keep it. You're keeping it in Butler County. That's your intention. But you also talked about your grandparents got priced out of the area.
Yes.
And as real estate continues to climb, and you fall out of the game because you can't keep up with the taxes.
Right.
One of the obligations you have in community management is you want to create opportunities. And if you have a $1.2 billion incursion on debt obligation, that means you got to go produce a whole many more billions in potential revenue over that span in order to offset the costs. And that's difficult when you sort of, not that you flatlined, we're still growing, but you don't have infinite amounts of growth.
Right.
So the value of that is X.
Yes.
And you've got to deal with that balance. And you're spending beyond that. So then you have to raise the taxes, and that means people who have been here, like your grandparents, can't. Or people who would like to stay here, like yourself, and some future wife and kids that might go to Lakota in the future after you're done doing all these things, and you'd like to stay. It might be too expensive to even think about.
Absolutely.
And that's not what we want.
No.
You can't be short-sighted for today, for real estate today, so you can flip your house and move somewhere else for the current family that's going through it in this five-year window. Because 10 years or 20 years from now, who's going to buy that house at the inflated rate because you got all these taxes on top of it?
Right, absolutely. And by the way, this was an important thing that the district wants to say. They want to say that we're not going to start collecting in 2029. So that they're bringing this up in 2024 or 2025.
It's like, don't pay for the first year.
Right.
Don't pay any interest on the first year.
We're not going to do this until 2 years, and then the 2 years is going to hit, and then we're going to be able to start collecting in 2029. But the vote is now. So you're like, well, Ben, why is this an issue now and not 2029? First off, you're going to be running for re-election on Lakota's board in 29 or something like that. Why you're bringing it up now? And it's because this is the last opportunity and the only opportunity voters get to defeat this. Otherwise, it's there for 37 years and onward. And so we talk about, like I said, people's ability to stay here, grow, and make a family in Westchester and Liberty Township and raise that family, put their kids in public education. We already know that this area is a very nice area, very affluent area. Like you said, our tax base is fairly wealthy. The average price of a home in Westchester is $457,000. So we're a good, blessed area. And people want to come into our district. They want to come into Liberty Township. They want to come into Westchester. And if they can make that financial hurdle to put their family here, then you want to help them at least grow and succeed so that they don't have to overcome any more financial hurdles. And especially when we're talking about appraisals going up 37% and onward, right? 37%.
Which means when you graduate from Miami 4 or 5 years from now,
That's right.
that house, that same value is going to be $650,000, $700,000.
That's right.
And how are you going to get a job out of college to buy a house at that level?
No, and you won't. So
So how are you going to stay here?
I'm going to defeat this levy. We're going to defeat this levy.
There you go.
We're going to defeat this levy. And we got to get people mobilized, and we got to get people aware of the price of, not just the price of like the dollars, right? Because there's a price that's put on paper and you'll see on the ballot, but there's another price here. And the price is people who moved here in the 90s. They bought a house for $175,000. Now they're on a fixed income. They're not going to be able to afford Westchester anymore. My grandmother couldn't afford Westchester before this levy, right? She just couldn't keep up with it because appraisals were.
And we haven't had a levy for a long time because we managed to keep things pretty. I mean, at a $250 million budget, we've kept them from having to go get more taxes, decline enrollment, and even with all those conditions, it's been hard for her.
Yes. So even with those conditions, it's hard for her. So she had to move out. She wouldn't have even considered Westchester if this levy had passed. Let's say 2029, people in her similar position, they won't even consider Westchester Liberty Townships if this levy passes, because they'll be paying almost $1,000 increase. The average homeowner in Westchester and Liberty Township will see a $1,000 increase at the end of the year because of this levy. People on fixed incomes, they can't afford it. And like I said, new families coming in, they see that number, because it's not just like the price of the house that you think about when you buy a home. It's the schools, it's the taxes of the area, it's the neighborhood. You're thinking about all those things. Even the HOA fees, right? People think of those when they move into neighborhoods. And those can be deterrents for people. And you don't want deterrents when you're talking about growth. So we've already got minimal growth for Lakota. Why would we want to hurt that even more? Why do we want to chase people away? That doesn't seem like a very smart idea to me.
So we're talking about good management. We're talking about having community management with you. Fresh out of the school system, you've seen it, you know it, you care about these things. I challenge a lot of people at the level of conversation you're having, that even adults that have been doing this for 30 years to equal you. So you're a great asset to vote for and put on the school board, because the goal would be, with Isaac, you have a vote against this levy. Right. He's not for it, but the other 4 are. You would be a second vote, and you need 3 votes. So we need to work on getting another person at some point in the future, assuming you're on there, and then you get your 3-vote majority, which we've been trying to get there for a long time.
That's right.
Because this levy needs to go down. You can't do it for all the reasons we've talked about.
Right.
But then what? Because they're going to come back in the next period, whether it's a May attempt or a summer attempt, to sneak it when no one's paying attention. They're going to try everything they can to get this snuck under the radar. And the ultimate solution is to have a majority on the school board that's there for tenure to protect the community from bad spending, from having pie in the sky ideas like, hey, it's great, we need to recruit new teachers, we need to make classrooms smaller, and we need to add more labor to the administrative side. We'll just pay for it with more taxes, because that's where we're at. And it would be great to have a brand new school as opposed to these older ones. And that's the decision-making process that could put a huge albatross across this community and just destroy what it is. So you have to have good management. You have to go vote for good people to go out there who want to do the job like you do.
Absolutely.
And then we have to build a majority vote on the school board to keep more tax opportunities, because until that happens, they're going to keep trying. Defeat this one, they're going to come back. You got to keep defeating them until you get a majority in the school board.
That's right.
And you're the second vote in that sanity.
Well, and actually, I'm not. And the reason is because Isaac's going to be he's terming out. He's not running for re-election this year. And so, I was very appreciative that he was the only one that voted against this levy. But, when they try again next year, he's not going to be on the board, which means, God willing, the voters give me a chance to be on the board, I will still be the only conservative.
So we need to get a few more.
So we need to get a lot more.
So we need, and this is, again, I'm all about, this has been a miserable experience for me, these schools. Arguing with these people has been just diabolically, it's lunacy. But I always am hopeful when I hear someone who wants to get in there and grind it out like you, and who is very articulate and smart and can have a good debate. And if we can only build a coalition of those types of people that could actually have intelligent conversations,
Absolutely.
I think it could work.
Absolutely.
And I think it can do what people want it to do if they're so inclined, and we're paying for it. You just have to have good management.
Right.
And if we had more people like you, I think it could work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with Isaac, if he's going to term out, we have to really have a plan. But it starts with having somebody you can anchor, get in there, and manage the thing as a community representative, because we certainly aren't represented well.
Right. And you need a strong anchor, and that's where I believe I come in. I believe I'm a strong anchor. I'm reinforced by my heritage. My grandfather came over here from Saigon, South Vietnam, with $2, built his American dream, raised his family, got uncles serving the United States Marine Corps, United States Air Force, Ohio Air National Guard. They work with NASA. We pour into this country because they gave us a second chance. I did not have the privilege of being able to serve in the United States military. I have a food allergy.
Yeah, you're just getting started.
Yeah, I was just getting started. I thought I was going down that route. But then this door opened up for me. And I was like, you know what? You don't have a lot of people stepping up for school boards.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody stepping up for school boards. If I was not running, 3 Democrats would be returned and put on the school board in November.
Unchallenged.
Unchallenged. And you think about, $691 million was passed with one objection from Isaac Adie. Think about it if it was 5 Democrats, the plans that they would be coming up with. You got to have people that are going to put people in check. Even if you got to have people that represent the values of the community.
Yep.
I share the values of the community. We want a voice for the parents. We want fiscal sanity. I share the values of our stakeholders, internal, external. Teachers want the resources. Students just want a good education. They want to be put up in a way that will lead them to success, right? That's why I heavily believe in career tech into the K-12 curriculum. Briefly, you were talking about, how am I going to be able to raise a family here? Accepting college debt is definitely something that a lot of people are looking into, but that doesn't have to be the only option. We were talking about, in my speech, kids who want to go in a trade school, want to get a certification or go a part of a vocational program, and Lakota doesn't offer those opportunities. If you want those opportunities, you've got to go to Butler Tech, and if you don't win Butler Tech's lottery, you're kind of stuck in Lakota asking yourself, what the heck am I going to do? And we need to have a school. Adaptability is a very marketable skill in the United States military, in the business world. You got to be able to be adaptable and adapt to the changing situations. And I think Lakota needs to be adaptable. We can't cater to the 50% that goes, we can't cater 100% to the 50% that goes into college. We've got to also keep in mind that, hey, we've got kids that want to be electricians, plumbers, welders. We got to pour into them, because they're going to build up our labor base, and they're going to pour back into Westchester and Liberty Township. I don't want Lakota to just be the golden standard for education for the kids going to college. I want us to be the golden standard for kids that we churn out in everything. The workforce, college, anything that kids want to do. I want Lakota grads to be looked on very, very highly when an employer sees that you went to Lakota West or East.
And they say, you're someone I want to hire.
That's right.
So are you planning on going to college, doing classes at Miami, and then coming over and doing school board meetings at night?
Yes.
I mean, that's going to be your thing.
Yes.
You'll go to class and you'll just drive to the school board meeting and
That's right.
take care of everything, because you're very ambitious and you're gonna stack up great experiences in these core years.
That's right.
And you're going to be an absolute superstar throughout your life.
I appreciate it. And you know what? I withstood 4 years of high school, and that's a very liberal environment. I'll withstand another 4 years of college. That's a very liberal environment. So I think people can be rest assured that on school board, there's going to be no selling out of any of my values. We're going to be full steam ahead. We're going to fight for the values of this district with conservative values, and we're going to launch the crusade and just returning conservative leadership to Lakota.
Great. And we'll wrap this up here in a minute, but you said another thing as we're talking here that was very intelligent at your speech. Again, I think 20 years from now, I'm probably going to look at that spot at the corner of her pool and think J.D. Vance was there, and you were there.
That's right.
And Vivek's been there, and all these people have been there. Bernie Marino spoke from that spot too.
That's right.
And I'm like, what is with that spot? People need to go take a bath where that spot is. But you talked about making this whole election about restoring parents' rights to the Lakota school system, and really, they've been ostracized and pushed aside through various means, whether it's deliberate, whether it's by default, whether it's people just want to have a new building and they don't want to hear the voices that cry it.
Right.
The voices of parents have been pushed aside as a secondary concern, and your whole intention is to restore that as a primary.
That's right. That's right. And it's going to be very difficult because I have to work with these people. 4 to 1, it's not going to be easy, but I think we can do it because it's just common sense. Your parents are paying taxes. Your parents are pouring into the students. Your parents are raising the students. You've got to have their opinions. I'm listening to all these other candidates talk about why they're running or who they are. Kelly Casper, for example, she's talking about roping in, making sure that the administrators, the teachers, the students are on the same page. She didn't talk about the parents. She didn't talk about the parents being on the same page. You've got to rope in the parents to these conversations because they're paying taxes. They're pouring into Lakota. They're investing in Lakota with their students. So that the Lakota can, if you have a kid graduate Lakota and that kid, ends up being successful in life, the high school is going to say, hey, we helped make that. We were a part of that.
Right.
So if you're going to be a part of that, be a good part of that. Bring in the parents into these conversations. There shouldn't be any guidance counselors misleading a kid or any inappropriate conversations being had where the parents aren't a part of that decision-making process. That's where we need to have parents enter the process because I think Lakota's been very lacking with that. And public comment is just a very public example of where it's been lacking. But behind closed doors, there's so much more discussions that are being had where parents need to be brought in.
Well, and I'm looking forward to voting for you. I fully support you. I think we can wrap this up. I think this has been a great conversation for people to get to know you a little bit. And I can't wait for Election Day, and I can't wait to see school board meetings with you speaking in complete sentences with that school board. I think it would be constructive. I think you can do this job without it being divisive, and I think it's something that we could build the future around, and I'm very impressed. So can't wait for Election Day to go cast a vote for you.
Well, I appreciate it, sir.
So anyway, Ben, it's great get to know you. I think we're going to go over to Nancy Nix's house, and we're going to mark that spot.
That's right.
And we're going to say Ben Nguyen spoke here, and those other guys like the vice president
that's right.
and the future governor and all these other people.
That's right.
And it's a very special spot because it makes great things, and hopefully that pixie dust can cascade into the Lakota school system.
That's right.
And we can give parents, make parents a primary again, bring fiscal sanity to some of this crazy spending, and actually do something that people can be proud of.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, have a great day, and vote for Ben Nguyen. You can't go wrong with that one. See you later.